Britain has always marched to the beat of its own culinary drum, creating 30 foods that are absolutely normal here, but would leave the rest of the world utterly baffled. From humble and beige chip butty to pickled shellfish that smell like the Thames at low tide. However, what most people don't realise is that these beloved staples were born from wartime rationing, industrial accidents, and sheer bloody-mindedness, revealing something profound. We don't just accept strange combinations, we celebrate them as badges of national identity. Let's start with beans on toast. Heinz baked beans poured over buttered toast, and it's been a staple since Fortnum and Mason first stocked them in 1886. The genius lies in its simplicity. Hot, sweet tomato sauce mingling with salty butter soaking into crispy bread. Heinz reformulated their recipe specifically for British tastes, making them sweeter and less spicy than American versions. The combination became so embedded in culture that during the post-war rationing period, beans on toast was one of the few affordable meals providing protein and comfort. The Ministry of Food even classified them as an essential food during wartime. The controversy? Proper Brits argue endlessly about whether beans go directly on toast or alongside to prevent sogginess. There's also the great Branston beans versus Heinz debate, which can genuinely end friendships. The UK consumes over 1.5 million cans daily, and beans on toast remains the ultimate student food, hangover cure, and midnight snack all rolled into one. This working-class masterpiece emerged in industrial northern England during the late 19th century. Regional variations cause genuine arguments. Lancashire adds curry sauce, Liverpool adds gravy, while purists view any additions as treasonous. It's essentially poverty food romanticised, but a proper chip butty should cost about £2 and be consumed slightly drunk at 11:30 on Friday night. Marmite is the ultimate divisive spread, a thick yeast extract that tastes like concentrated umami. Invented in 1902 when German scientist Justus von Liebig discovered brewer's yeast could be concentrated into an edible paste. During both World Wars, it was included in soldiers' rations for B vitamins. The trick is using the tiniest amount on hot buttered toast. In 2011, Denmark effectively stopped allowing Marmite sales because it violated vitamin fortification regulations, causing fury among British expats. Marmite now comes in different strengths, with XO being extra potent. Black pudding is blood sausage made from pork, blood, fat, oatmeal and seasonings. The best comes from Bury in Lancashire, where they've been making it since the 1800s. When fried, the outside becomes crispy while the inside stays soft and crumbly, with a rich mineral taste from the blood that's genuinely delicious if you can get past the concept. It's incredibly nutritious, packed with iron, protein, zinc and magnesium. It was working-class nutrition in edible form using parts of the pig that would otherwise be wasted. Modern food safety regulations have made traditional black pudding harder to produce, with some manufacturers using dried blood powder instead of fresh blood, which changes the texture and flavour. The really contentious issue is whether black pudding belongs in a full English breakfast, with some arguing it's essential, while others claim it's a northern affectation that has no place in a traditional fry-up. Jellied eels are chopped eels boiled in spice stock that sets into jelly around the eel pieces. A traditional London East End food, dating back to the 18th century when the Thames was full of eels, and they were one of the cheapest forms of protein available to the poor. The jellied aspect comes from gelatin, released from the eels during cooking, creating a natural aspic. They're served cold, often with chili vinegar and white pepper, and you eat them with a spoon, jelly, and all. They nearly died out completely in the 1980s and 1990s as working-class Londoners moved away from traditional foods and the Thames eel population collapsed due to pollution and overfishing. The few remaining eel and pie shops in London, like Mimanzé, which opened in 1902, are now heritage institutions rather than everyday eateries. Most eels used in British cuisine now are actually imported, often as young elvers from France or Spain, because British eel populations have declined by over 90% since the 1980s. The texture is what puts most people off. Cold, gelatinous, with soft eel meat that has a slightly muddy flavour. The crisp sandwich is crisps between buttered white bread. That's it. No protein, no vegetables, just starch, fat, salt, and more starch. The crisp sandwich emerged in the 1960s when both sliced white bread and packaged crisps became household staples, and some genius realized they could combine them for ultimate convenience. The appeal is textural, the crunch of the crisps against the softness of the bread, with butter providing lubrication and flavour. There are fierce debates about which crisps work best, with cheese and onion being the traditional favourite, though ready-salted purists exist. Salt and vinegar creates an intense experience that some find overwhelming. Food scientists have confirmed the combination triggers multiple pleasure centres in the brain through the interplay of salt, fat, and contrasting textures. It's essentially junk food between junk food, a monument to bad nutrition that somehow remains beloved. The crisp sandwich is distinctly working class and unapologetically unhealthy, which is probably why middle-class food writers either ignore it entirely or write about it with performative nostalgia. A hard-boiled egg wrapped in sausage meat, coated in breadcrumbs and deep-fried until golden. Despite the name, it's probably not Scottish in origin. The most credible story credits Fortnum and Mason, the posh London department store, with inventing it in 1738 as a portable snack for wealthy travellers. The name likely comes from the process of scotching or mincing the meat. A proper Scotch egg should have a perfectly cooked egg with a slightly soft yolk, not the rubbery overcooked disaster you get from supermarket versions. The sausage meat should be well seasoned, and the breadcrumb coating should shatter when you bite into it. The Scotch egg went through a massive renaissance in the 2010s when gastropubs started serving gourmet versions with quail eggs, black pudding, or even chorizo in the meat mixture. The VAT status of Scotch eggs also caused controversy in 2020 when the government had to define whether they counted as a substantial meal for COVID-19 pub restrictions, leading to absurd legal debates. They're now everywhere, from petrol stations to Michelin-starred restaurants. Sausages baked in Yorkshire pudding batter. The name probably comes from sausages peeking out like toads from holes. It emerged in the 18th century to make expensive meat go further. The trick is getting smoking hot fat before pouring in the batter. The controversial bit is that cheap sausages actually work better than expensive ones because they release more fat during cooking, which helps the batter crisp up. A steamed suet pudding with dried fruit. It's been around since the mid-19th century. The pudding is dense, sweet, made with animal fat from around kidneys. Spotted Dick briefly became Spotted Richard in the early 2000s to avoid snickering, but this political correctness was widely mocked. It's largely disappeared from everyday eating but remains in nostalgia, drowning in luminous yellow custard. Meatballs made from pork offal, liver, heart and organ meats, wrapped in caul fat and baked. The name comes from Old French faggot, meaning a bundle of sticks. They've been part of British cuisine since medieval times. Mr. Brain's Faggots has produced them commercially since 1888. Modern food safety regulations have changed what can legally go into them, making commercial versions blander than traditional butcher-made ones. Cow stomach lining slow-cooked with onions in milk sauce. It was enormously popular in industrial northern England, where tripe shops were as common as chip shops. In the 1950s, there were tripe shops on every high street. By the 1990s, they'd almost completely disappeared. The preparation is genuinely off-putting, and the smell during cooking is distinctly unpleasant. It's British food at its most challenging. Fried mashed potatoes and cabbage made from Sunday roast leftovers. The name supposedly comes from cooking sounds. It represents British thriftiness, turning leftovers into legitimate meals. It became especially popular during rationing when wasting food was unpatriotic. Modern versions calling for fresh vegetables completely miss the point. The dish has even been commercialised with frozen cakes, which is absurd for something designed to use up food you already had. Marrowfat peas soaked overnight, then boiled into thick, bright green mush. Traditional accompaniment to northern fish and chips, though viewed with suspicion in the south. They're actually more nutritious than fresh peas. The tradition comes from industrial northern England, where dried peas were cheaper than fresh vegetables. The north-south divide is real. Northerners consider them essential. Southerners find them baffling. Some chip shops serve mint mushy peas, which purists view as abomination. A sweat pastry case filled with beef, diced kidney, onions and gravy, steamed for hours. It's different from steak and kidney pie. The pudding version dates to Victorian times but requires hours of steaming. The kidney provides distinctive, slightly metallic flavour that's essential, but also why many refuse to eat it. Proper versions used ox kidney, not lamb kidney. Younger generations largely refuse to eat kidney at all. Welsh seaweed paste, not actual bread. Laver is collected from rocks, washed repeatedly, then boiled for hours into dark green paste. It's traditionally mixed with oatmeal and fried, served with bacon and cockles. It's been eaten in Wales possibly since prehistoric times. The taste is aggressively oceanic, almost fishy. There's no middle ground. You either appreciate its unique umami intensity or find it revolting. Boiled and sold at seaside stalls. They're eaten with a pin, doused in vinegar and white pepper. The meat is chewy, slightly sweet, distinctly marine tasting. Preparing them properly requires precise timing to avoid rubbery texture. They're nutritious but viewed as poverty food. Most British caught whelks are now exported to South Korea and Japan, while British stalls import cheaper foreign whelks. Cold meat pie with thick pastry filled with pork and a layer of meat jelly between meat and pastry. The jelly, made from boiling pork bones, fills the gap created when meat shrinks during baking. Melton Mowbray has protected geographical indication status. Proper Melton Mowbray pies use uncured pork, giving grey colour rather than pink. Many people find the jelly layer repulsive, so modern supermarket pies use minimal jelly or artificial thickeners. London East End tradition, minced beef pie with mashed potatoes and liquor, a bright green parsley sauce made from eel cooking water. Traditional pie and mash shops are time capsules with Victorian tiles and marble tables. Places like Mansey's, opened in 1902, operate almost exactly as they did a century ago. The liquor is intensely green and tastes overwhelmingly of parsley. It's kept alive by dwindling family-run shops serving loyal but aging customers. Fried bread. Bread slices fried in bacon fat, butter or lard until golden and crispy. It was standard in full English breakfast before toast took over. It virtually disappeared in the 1980s and 1990s as health concerns about saturated fat became mainstream. It's actually delicious, far superior to toast, but it's become almost shameful to prefer it. The bread should be fried in genuinely hot meat drippings, not fresh oil. Dark brown, chunky pickle relish made from carrots, cauliflower, onions and rutabaga in sweet and spicy sauce. Invented in 1922 in Branston near Burton-upon-Trent. The flavour is complex, sweet, tangy, slightly spicy. The recipe was slightly altered in 2013 to reduce salt and sugar, causing outrage. The company released both versions. It's traditionally eaten with cheese. Branston pickle is almost unknown outside Britain and former colonies. Thick, salty paste made from beef extract created in the 1870s. The name comes from bos, Latin for ox, and vril, from a Victorian science fiction novel. It can be spread on toast but is more commonly dissolved in hot water to make a savoury drink. Bovril was reformulated in 2004 to use yeast extract during the BSE crisis, causing fury. The beef version returned in 2006. As a hot drink, it's been a staple at British football matches for over a century. Tangy, yellow condiment that's thinner than mayonnaise but thicker than vinaigrette. Heinz has made it since 1914. It nearly died in 2018 when Heinz considered discontinuing it, sparking public outcry. Traditional British salads have been replaced by more sophisticated options that demand better dressings. Salad cream seems like a relic of 1950s cooking when vinegary, slightly sweet dressings were the height of sophistication. Small shellfish sold pickled or boiled at seaside stalls. Cockles are small clams boiled briefly, then pickled in vinegar. Winkles are tiny sea snails requiring a pin to extract meat. Both have been part of coastal food culture for centuries. In the early 20th century, cellars were everywhere. Now they're rare. The taste is intensely oceanic, vinegary, and slightly metallic. The younger generation has almost completely abandoned these foods. Baked corn snacks shaped like monster feet, launched in 1977. The pickled onion flavour is intensely acidic, sharp, and overwhelming. They were originally much larger but were shrunk in the 1990s while the price remained the same. Classic shrinkflation. The flavour isn't remotely close to actual pickled onions, it's a synthetic approximation that's become its own thing. They've remained largely unchanged since the 1970s. Folded pastry filled with beef, potato, swede and onion, crimped along one edge. It has protected geographical indication status, granted in 2011 after years of campaigning. The tradition dates back centuries, originally designed as portable lunches for Cornish tin miners. Traditional Cornish pasties are quite plain, just meat, potato, swede and onion, no gravy. The pasty was weaponized in 2012's Pastygate scandal over VAT on hot takeaway pasties. A sausage coated in chip shop batter and deep fried. It has no ancient heritage, it's simply something chip shops started doing for variety. The technique is identical to battering fish. The appeal is textural contrast and convenience. Because chip shops use cheap sausages, the filling is often more bread and fat than actual meat. The batter disguises this. It's distinctly working-class food, existing where convenience, affordability, and palatability override all other considerations. Dry wheat-based breakfast biscuits that you drown in milk until they soften into mush. Launched in Britain in 1932 based on American shredded wheat. Each biscuit is a dense, dry brick, virtually inedible without milk. Despite their plain appearance, they're quite nutritious. High in fibre, low in sugar. The controversial bit is texture timing. Too soon and they're too hard. Too late and they're unpleasant mush. Finding perfect Weetabix consistency requires timing and practice. Small, sweet pastries filled with mincemeat, which contains no actual meat in modern versions. The filling is dried fruits, suet, spices, and sometimes alcohol. They're exclusively associated with Christmas. Medieval mince pies did contain meat mixed with fruit and spices, but the meat was phased out by the Victorian era. Many people, particularly children and foreigners, don't actually like mince pies. The filling is dense, dark, and strongly spiced. The annual ritual of buying and eating mince pies in December is so ingrained that many Britons continue despite not particularly enjoying them. Instant ramen in a polystyrene pot requiring only boiling water. Introduced to Britain in the late 1970s. The British version is distinct from Asian instant noodles, thicker, greasier, more intensely flavoured. It was marketed to young men through advertising that emphasised its artificiality and unhealthiness as positives, using slogans like "the slag of all snacks." The flavour is distinctly synthetic. It fills a particular need: quick, hot, filling, requiring no cooking skills beyond a kettle. Baked dessert made from stale bread, butter, dried fruit, eggs, milk, and sugar. The ultimate thrifty dessert designed to use up stale bread. The tradition goes back centuries, representing the waste-nothing mentality of working-class kitchens. The result is sweet custardy with crispy top and soft interior. Bread and butter pudding has been gentrified almost beyond recognition. Working-class originals use basic white bread and margarine. Modern restaurant versions use brioche, proper butter and exotic fruits, creating something sophisticated and expensive from what was originally poverty food. If you need something to wash all this grub down with, head over to the video covering the 15 old British beers that only true Brits remember. a walk down memory lane of your favourite pints of the past. From blood sausages to instant noodles, from jellied eels to crisp sandwiches, British food culture is a wonderful mess of tradition, innovation, and sheer stubbornness that's turned poverty into heritage and somehow convinced us that putting chips between bread makes perfect sense. So hit that subscribe button, share this with someone who needs to understand just how gloriously weird British food really is, and drop a comment telling me which of these foods you'd actually defend to a foreigner. Because defending beans on toast to an American is a rite of passage, and we're all in this together.